All right, I would like to welcome on Jason. What we're going to be doing is having a weekly show where we go over five sports bets pick. Three of them are going to be against the spread, the three games that we like the most. One has to be a player prop, and then the fifth one will be kind of a wild card. So it could be any
Cool.
sort of parlay, money line, if you like another against the spread, or however you want to place that bet. And then as we do this every week, we're going to be keeping track of our totals and seeing how we do. So, Jason, do you want to start us off with your first bet?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more of a money line guy, but against the spread, there's a couple games that I like this week. I like the Bengals a lot against the Titans. Main reason for that is the Titans. It looks like they've kind of laid down at this point. Their offense looks atrocious. They can stop the run a little bit, but not really that great. And that's not a thing that the Bengals really are worried about. They're going to throw the ball more anyway. I think that they have way too high powered of an offense. The defense usually is a liability, but against the Titans, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I honestly, I think the Bengals are going to kill them. What are your
And
thoughts?
I agree, but I was thinking about this one because what did you have on the line on that? I think it was -5.
Yeah, I got -5. Like honestly, I think the Bengals are going to be double digits on this. I think the Titans have quit at this point. Like you
I
got
did
Jeffrey Simmons calling out his team and calling them soft. I mean, that's not good.
I was looking at that one, but my biggest concern with that was I felt the same way last week. I think they opened up as 5.5 point favorites against the Cowboys, and I just
Mhm.
thought that was a little bit much. But I thought their offense was high powered enough to kind of overcome that. Um,
Turned out to be. I mean,
yeah,
it happened. The Bengals did win. I mean, the Cowboys were playing for like a last gasp chance to make the playoffs. The Titans are done. They've been done. Like, I don't think the Titans have anything left at this point. I think that they're already on vacation mode. Like the Cowboys, at least, were still kind of playing for something in that
hmm
game.
that was the only thing that kind of worried me was. I mean, they did end up covering last week on Monday Night Football. They do have a little bit of a shorter week, and if it weren't for that blocked punt, then it might be a little bit of a different
Mhm.
story. It's not to say they wouldn't have gone into overtime and scored, but I don't hate that one. So I'll go
All
to
right.
my first pick is I have Steelers versus the Eagles, and I'm taking the Steelers plus 5.5. What do you think
Which
about
is
that one?
interesting. I don't know if the people that are watching know what a big Eagle fan it is, so this must really be one that you must feel strongly about. Like I can see it. Like the problem that I can see coming forward for both teams is that they're very similar. They both like running the ball. They're both controlling the game with their defense. If I was going to bet this game, honestly, I'd probably bet the under more than anything, just because I think that both teams are going to try to control. And I think it's going to be a game where the first one that makes a mistake is going to lose. Like, are you betting that Philadelphia is going to make a mistake, or are you betting that Pittsburgh's going to make a mistake? I think that Tomlin is going to play more not to lose and try to put him in a sleeper hold, try to keep the game as close as possible so that anything could happen in the fourth quarter, and that hits your bet. So I like your bet on the. I mean, I don't understand why it's 5.5. That seems way high. I mean, I do think the Eagles are going to win, but 5.5 seems like a lot of points in that game.
And this is, yeah, I thought it was a little bit too high. And I mean, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, when they're an underdog, have like an insane record against the spread. That's part of the reason why I chose it. I did want to wait and kind of see a little bit to see if George Pickens would be playing. I think having
I
their
think he's
number one
not. I think
receiver.
he's out. I think
I
he's
think
out
so
actually.
too. I
Yeah.
s- I still like it just on the fact too that the Eagles also aren't. They've actually this year been better on the road than at home. And then yeah, I think I don't know. I just see a situation with everything that's gone on with the Eagles, and going up against a top run defense like Pittsburgh, that they're going to have to pass a little bit more. And then getting AJ Brown involved, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think they can still win, but I think this game ends up a lot closer. If we're not able to play our brand of football that we have been, which is, running 40, 50 times a game.
Exactly. No, I see it exactly the same way. I think that's a good pick, actually. That one's not bad. Well, that leads me to my second pick, right? So my
Hmm.
second one on the board, I would go. I like the Falcons -4 against the Raiders. Another team that is pretty beat up, that doesn't have much to play for. It is Monday Night Football, I guess, but the Falcons have everything to play for. They've fallen behind against the Bucks. Obviously, Cousins has been awful. Cousins is playing for his career, basically, if you really think about it, because if he keeps playing like he's playing, obviously Penix is going to come in. That's it for sure. But who's going to pick up Cousins next year? Is Cousins going to go the way of like a Flacco or something? So I think that this is a must win for the Falcons. This has a lot of motivation. This is Monday Night Football against a Raider team that, quite frankly, is awful. 4 points seems like a really low total. The Falcons do still have talent, even though they haven't been playing well. And I always like teams that have something to play for versus a team that has nothing to play for. If it was the last week of the season, maybe, but this is, we're still kind of towards the end of the season. So I like the Falcons a lot here.
I like that one a lot too. I just see, especially coming out of that game last week, they were pretty close against Minnesota, but then they kind of just blew it open. And with the way Kirk Cousins has been playing, I agree with you. Now we're talking about the jobs on the line. Technically, they're still not out of the AFC, title. The only thing I don't like betting against the Raiders is once in a while they could just be a really aggressive, feisty team. They can just get a lucky ball that goes their way and they take it in for 6. But I do agree with you, and I think there's too many problems. I think the Raiders are done this year. They just had did you see the defensive end just got a DUI?
No, I didn't see that when that happened.
Yeah, he's
just trying to fit in. He's just being a Raider. Yeah.
I think it was Charles Snowden. So he's not one of their starters, but he rotates. He's played in every single game. They caught him with his Jeep halfway off a 4-foot ledge, passed out, and doubled the legal limit. So things like that just seem to plague the Raiders every year.
Yeah, the Raiders haven't killed anybody this year, so at least they still got that streak going. That's huge, especially for DUIs. So I'm glad they didn't kill nobody this time.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the Raiders if someone didn't get arrested, right?
That's right, on a weekly basis.
I almost picked the Falcons, and I was a little bit hesitant, but for my second one, I'm picking the Packers -2.5 over the Seahawks.
Okay, we both have that game, actually. Yeah, we're both on that.
All right. Well, you start off and give me your thoughts, and then I'll add in on some of mine as well.
Okay, sounds good. Honestly, I've got some 49er bias. There's no doubt about that. But I really just don't think Seattle's honestly that good. Like, the teams that Seattle have beaten, the 49ers included, have not been very good this year. The talented teams have beaten them. And a team like the Packers, they're so well-rounded. They can play on offense. They can play on defense. Their special team is good. I just honestly, when you just line up talent for talent, the Seattle can hang with them offensively, but defensively, my goodness, I think the Packers should just kill them. I just don't see how Seattle can stay with the Packers.
I agree. When looking at some of the wins and what the Packers have been able to do is far more impressive to me. Like you mentioned.
Exactly.
And Seattle's really like a Leonard Williams pick 6 away from maybe losing that game against the Jets. They've had a lot of things go their way, which doesn't last forever. And
the Niners were killing them until the end of the game when Bosa came on, then they fell apart. Like, there's been a lot of Seattle bounces that have gone the right. Even in the beginning of the season, when they were 3-0, they almost lost. I think they did lose to the Jets, or they almost lost to the Jets. Like, I'm going to pull up their schedule. They've been horrible.
Mm-hmm. And while you're doing that, like, if you look at the Packers' losses, it's against the Eagles, it's against the Lions, it's against some of the top teams in the NFL, whereas looking at the Seahawks, I just don't see them as much of a complete team. And what I am excited about, though, is this could be a possible first-round playoff matchup, too, in the wild card.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. But it's like, again, 4-game winning streak sounds like a real big deal. Beat the Niner team, should have lost that game, quite frankly, but the Niners did what they do. They beat the Cardinals, the Jets, and the Cardinals. Why are we so impressed with them? Who did they lose to? They lost to the Lions, they lost to the Giants, and they suck, and they lost to the 49ers there. Falcon win was a good win, and Atlanta was still playing well. That was when their slide just got started. But then they lost to the Bills and the Rams. Like, again, the best win, quite frankly, the best win the Seahawks have had all year, and this is me being a 49er fan, is a victory against the Falcons. Are they really that good? I think the Packers are going to kill them.
I do too. So we're the same on that one. So I'll move on to my last of the ones against the spread. This one,
Cool.
for some reason, it's been calling to me because there's been several weeks where I felt good about the Bears covering the spread,
Oh
and then
God, really?
I didn't
Oh
hit
God,
on it,
really?
so I stayed away from it. But I like the
Yeah,
Bears +7 at the Vikings. What are your thoughts?
dude, my team sucks, and we just killed them. Like, I don't see the Bears doing anything. I don't know how you possibly could pick. If the Bears played against Carolina right now, I'd pick Carolina. Like, I don't know how you pick the Bears to do anything. Like, the Bears looked beyond pathetic with their new coaching staff. I would not take that game.
And my reasoning behind it was they can play like feisty football, and they have shown the ability to taking the Lions, down the wire, one bad decision from potentially tying it. The Vikings have had games where they had no business being that close. For
Mhm.
example, the Jaguars, and
Yeah.
the defense for the Vikings in the beginning of the year just seemed like something quarterbacks couldn't figure out. Right, C.J. Stroud came out. There was another quarterback they faced in the first 3 weeks. They were just like they were seeing ghosts. Well, that defense has kind of softened up a little bit, and I still think there's enough firepower on the Bears' offense. I think Caleb Williams is kind of getting it a little bit, and then I just like teams that come off an embarrassing loss the next week. So I
All
think
right.
if this was like 4.5, 5, I'd probably stay away from it. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities for the Bears to get, that cover that spread.
The Bears have played, let's see here, about 12 games. How many of the games do you think that the Bears have scored under 20 points when you talk about firepower? 20 or lower
Ooh, 20 or lower out of 12 games?
out of 12 games. I believe what's their record? Yeah. No, 13, 4 and 9. They're 4 and 9 right now as we're recording this.
I would say out of 13 games, probably 5 of those under 20 points without looking.
It is 8 times. 8 times out
Damn.
of 13 times they have not scored 20 points. Like, they do not have firepower. They should. I mean, with the names on that offense, they should have tons of firepower. They don't. 13 against the Niners, 20 against the Lions in the game they should have won. Their best one by far was against the Vikings, which they still lost. 19 against the Packers. They scored 3 points against the Patriots. 3. They scored 9 points against the Cardinals. The Cardinals' defense is pathetic, and they gave up 9. They had a streak where they went one. Let's see here. Their 3 wins that they had was the only time they had firepower, and they scored 24, 36, and 35. That was back week 4, 5, and 6. Since then, they're completely broken. Like, this team is as done as, like, we were talking about before here. Like, when we were talking about the Titans, teams like the Raiders, the Bears have completely quit, in my opinion. I don't like that pick. I think you're going to lose that one, but we'll see. We've got the
All
recording,
right.
so we'll find out. We'll be able to
Yeah.
check it out.
Next
Yeah.
week when we do a little recap of it, then I hope I'm on the mark, but I just
Yeah, then
feel.
you can replay all this stuff and make me look like an idiot. It'll
Yeah,
be
the
great.
clip of me
Yeah,
being so
it'll be
strong.
perfect.
But there's something
Yeah.
about division games, and especially when the spread is that high, that it's a feeling. And that's the hard thing is looking at some of these other games, at least I have some tangible things to go off, like Mike Tomlin's record on going against the spread as an underdog, the Packers'
Mhm.
qualities of wins versus Seahawks. This one is just a pure like feeling that I had with the Bears a couple of weeks when they did cover the spread when it looked likely. So I'm taking a little bit of a flyer on this, but we'll come back
Well,
and
and
see
you're
next
right on
week.
that one. Their 3 divisions are all losses, but all of them would have covered the spread. They all were within 3 points. So I can see, yeah, you got a point there for the division ones. But it's the second time they're playing. That means they know them even better. Again, one team has something to play for, other one doesn't. Big thing for me, at least. But we'll see.
All right. So when it comes
Cool.
to our player prop, what is
Mhm.
what have you seen that you like the best?
I've got a few of them. I'll let you decide what you think is the best ones out of this. One I really liked was Rico Dowell. This one's a little obscure for the Cowboys, rushing over 83.5 yards. The Panthers have given up 2,211 rushing yards 300 more than the second worst rushing team defense in the league. Like their rushing defense is atrocious. The Cowboys are all about ball control right now since they're playing with their backup quarterback and they're in disarray. I can see that being a huge running day for Rico Dowdle in a close game. The other one is Derrick Henry against the Giants. Again, another horrible run defense team against a team that's a 16-point favorite. I wasn't going yards on this one. I was going first touchdown of the game. I could easily see Henry going in for the first one, and he's getting plus 250 for that one, which is fun. And the other last one I had is the first score of the game, which is always wild. You never know who's going to go to the first one. But why not go for Josh Allen against the Lions? He's plus 900 on that bet, and he's their whole offense. If they get the ball first and he scrambles it in, that's plus 900. That seemed like a fun one.
It's funny. So the Rico Dowdle one I wasn't looking at, but I was looking at the Derrick Henry first touchdown one. I can see that easy hitting. And I was actually looking at the Josh Allen. I like to put together some of the first touchdown scores and do a little parlay because the payout is insane if you can string a couple of them together. But that was one of the ones I included. I like Josh Allen using his legs to get, and it seems like he's been doing it more and more of recently. I like the Rico Dowdle one a lot too because on Monday Night Football, I was like, okay, the one thing that the Bengals have been, their defense has at least been able to somewhat hang with is against the run, right? So they haven't been absolutely terrible. When they've been getting torched, it's through the passing game. But Rico Dowdle had like over 90 yards, I think, in the first three quarters against their defense.
When he's running angry, you can tell this is his opportunity, and he's making the most of it. That's what I love about him there.
Mm-hmm. And watching against Carolina last week, like I put an over on Kenny Gainwell for the Eagles going over 20 yards because I was like, maybe they don't run as heavy with Saquon Barkley to save his legs, but I'm like, they're going to run on this defense, and it's easy. It doesn't take like a top running back or anything, so I like that one a lot. Honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. I think the odds are higher on Henry and Josh Allen, but
they're more luck involved in those two, just because anybody can get a first score. I mean, you could get a kickoff return on the first play of the game, and that's a touchdown. So there's a lot more luck involved in first score of the game than there is actual, do I see something here that can work? I got an entire game. If everything goes like it should, then I should win this bet. Versus, hey, look, the first play of the game, I already lost. Great. Wonderful. 5 seconds in. That was a great one. Yay.
I can easily
MGM has that cool thing on the. Yeah, I was going to say MGM has that cool thing too on the first. If they score the second touchdown, you get your money back, which is kind of cool about what they do. So if Henry doesn't score on the first touchdown, but they scores on the second one, then at least you break even. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and see on that, I think that's almost a guarantee for him to get a touchdown. I don't see a realm where the Giants come out and score first. I don't, and then I can easily see them getting there. Yeah.
Did you see the odds for anytime score for Henry? It's like minus 230. It's ridiculous. It's like, what would be the point? It's like, he's probably going to score. Look, I won $2. Yay.
So which one do you want to stick with?
But if I'm going the safe way, I'd go Rico Dowdle. If I'm going the most aggressive way, I would definitely go with the Allen one, just because I can see that happening for sure. It's going to be the Josh Allen show. They've got something to prove. They just got beat by the Rams. They're trying to keep pace in the AFC. If he's going to be the first score of the game, I got to think Allen is a great chance at it. And when you're getting 9-1, that's worth a swing.
I like that, especially the odds being 9-1.
Yeah. That one is cool.
So I almost am tempted to steal one of the ones you mentioned, but I made a commitment to put a little action on A.J. Brown over 80.5 yards.
I don't know about that one. We all got, okay, so myself included, got all excited. Devo popped off his mouth, said he wants the ball more. Niners went out and he got 16 yards. Don't hoping that nothing like that happens with your team. And again, you're playing an amazing defense, and you're going to be in a very tight game where you're trying not to make mistakes. Throwing the ball all over the yard when you got Saquon Barkley is a mistake. Like, if you're doing it just to make A.J. Brown happy and you don't want to beat Pittsburgh, I don't know about him going over 80 yards against Pittsburgh.
So that's what I worry about but I had the same thought process when we were playing the Ravens. I mean, we dominated the game against the Ravens, so it didn't turn out. But again, Pittsburgh is going to be one of the best teams we play all year. And
Yeah.
with the top rushing defense, and if they're able to limit Saquon Barkley, I go to the default of when Jalen Hurts needs to win games or get a first down, it always goes through A.J. Brown. And you'd be surprised where it feels like A.J. Brown's not getting involved in some of these games and not getting a lot of touches. But even if you go back to when we played the Rams, Saquon Barkley had over 300 yards from line of scrimmage, 255 rushing, and about 50 receiving. A.J. Brown still had 5 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, that's huge. But that's the Ram defense, though.
That's true. I just feel like,
That's all I'd say.
and when you go back and look at our games and Saquon Barkley's rushing, he has this kind of wall he hits where I don't think it's him necessarily. I think it's our position in the game. But like against the Browns, he only had 33 yards. There was another game where I think he only had 50. After a couple of these big games, like he popped off for over 150 against the Giants, and then it was like 100 yards. And then he would have very below subpar, amount of yards. And then it would go to a breakout game where I see this is going to be the game where Saquon Barkley won't be as much of an impact. But if I had to go back, I already kind of committed to this, but I like the Rico Dowdle one more than the A.J. Brown play.
Okay, that sounds fair. That's good. I mean, it's not impossible. A.J. Brown's one of the best receivers in all of football. It's very possible. It's just weather's worse now. We're in December. You pretty much count on the weather is going to be some form of bad. I don't know if it's going to be monsoon bad, but it'll be some kind of bad. And it's going to be sloppy out there. And it's a team that's going to try to run the clock as much as possible. Big stat games don't usually happen in games where you're trying to put the other team in a sleeper hold. Usually you're trying to run the clock as much as possible. You get a game like last night with San Francisco's game where it's just boring as all hell, a bunch of punts, and nobody gets any yards. So it's harder to get those big receiving numbers when the weather is bad and you got two teams to play like this, basically.
That is true. And speaking of that game, last night, the odds for no touchdowns to be scored in that game was 1 in 225.
I'm surprised it's not bigger. They said actually that night too, the 49ers have been playing the Rams twice a year every year since like 1950. They'd never had a game ever where nobody scored a touchdown. That was the first one. It's an anomaly. They're both good offenses is the crazy part. Like you'd never thought that was the situation. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we won't spend too much time on that game. I know it's a little bit fresh in your mind, but
yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
For your last pick, again, it's a wild card. It could be anything. It could be money line. It could be another player prop. You have free reign.
Okay, so for the people watching out there, I changed it up. I had noticed that I had been doing very well on my just pick'ems when there's no point spread early in the year, and I was quite frankly losing a bunch when I would do my odds. I mean, I'd win some, I'd lose some, and I was like, why am I fighting a current? Why don't I just do money line bets all the way around and make parlays out of them? And I've done very well actually with the parlay bets. I've won more than I've lost on this one, and I'm up for the year for this part. So I'll give you mine for this week. I usually do either 3 or 4 team ones, and you're going to think, well, this is a no-brainer, this is easy. And yeah, that's kind of the point. That's why these are winning, basically. So if you go money line Ravens, the spread is like -16, but if you go money line, what are the odds of the Ravens losing to the Giants this week? I got money line Bengals, and I've got money line Vikings. That pays +105 when you put the 3 of them together. So you put $50 on them, you win even money. And I don't think I know anybody that's got the Titans beating the Bengals. I don't think anybody's having the Giants beat the Ravens. I'd be shocked. I mean, do shocking things happen? Of course they do, but I mean, I doubt it. And that's what I said. I'm sorry for yours. I'd be shocked if the Bears beat the Vikings. I don't know how that happens, but I mean, maybe, I guess, if you think so. But I've got the Vikings in there as one of my 3. So it's Ravens, Bengals, Vikings money line, and it pays +105 at least when I bet it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that was the key. You opened my eyes to that because I never even thought about. I was like, oh, the money line, it's just not a good payout. But when you're stringing them together and you're getting even money or slightly above, I've done pretty well on a couple of those. So I'll finish with mine's actually going to be a college football one. But before we get to that, one I thought about and I want your thoughts on. Why didn't you put money line Kansas City?
Okay, I honestly, God, I can't bet against Kansas City because it always goes badly, so I just don't do it. But I really and truly think the Browns can beat Kansas City, is just as sad as it sounds. The style of football that they play, if they get the run game going and they put them in that same sleeper hold that Kansas City seems to be putting in, it's going to be a one-score game, most likely. And if by some miracle the ball bounces the Browns' way, I mean, you're talking about the luckiest franchise in NFL history against the most unlucky team in franchise history. But if something changes, anytime you've got a one score game, anything can happen, even though it for some reason always goes to the Chiefs. But I didn't want to put money on it. And the spread's 4 points. So I think that the Browns can get within three because it seems like every Chief game is within three. But I also could see a scenario where the Browns win, surprisingly. So I didn't want to touch that game.
I was thinking today because my pick for my wild card is the Navy and Army is the pretty much the only college football game with any significance this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at the over, and I like 40.5 the over. Now that's not traditionally with the type of offenses these two teams run, like triple option wing tee, that kind of style of offense. But if you look, both of these teams are averaging almost 40 points a game scoring.
Wow. Yeah, I don't follow those teams, but that's incredible. Usually it's like 6-3 Army or something in those games.
So we won't spend too much time on that, but I do want that to be my fifth pick. But it was tied heavily with, I kind of wanted to go the Browns, either against the spread or just straight up money line.
See, I can't do it just because I feel so stupid. Like if I said the words "I'm betting Browns over Chiefs," I just feel like an idiot. Like honestly, and then you look at and then you play this back again. It's like, so it's 35-7. You still like the Browns? That I could see that happening next week. So I just definitely wouldn't want to be on record there. But I mean, I'm like you. I've watched all the Chiefs games because I hate them with a passion, and I keep cheering for them to lose, and they never do. And every game, it looks like they're about to lose, and they should lose, and then some miracle happens, and they don't. And it's just anytime you got that, you don't want to bet on that. I mean, and the Browns, that game against Pittsburgh, it's you never know.
Mm-hmm. And if someone is thinking about, putting some action on the Browns for either money line or even just to cover the spread, I would like them to think about this. When you mentioned it earlier, when you have the luckiest team playing the most unlucky team in the NFL,
yeah,
that luck tends to kind of average back out and crazy things happen. And then the Browns could be in a position where they're not really playing for as much except for to be spoiler. And hate him or love it for it, but Jameis Winston, when they don't care, and they just let him go out there and sling it, he puts up some big fucking numbers. And they could be in a position where we don't care about the game. We'll go for it every fourth down and make it tough. So we have an extra down to play with.
It's in Cleveland. It's going to be 40 degrees. It's supposed to be raining. This is the Browns Super Bowl. There's no doubt about it. The Browns have nothing else to play for. Anytime you're playing the Chiefs, it's your Super Bowl. The Chiefs are going to be sleepwalking. Now the Chiefs have a 2-game lead against Buffalo, so their sense of urgency is not going to be there. The Browns are famous for making a game ugly. Like, this has all the makings of a trap game to it. It's the Chiefs. Like, I'd bet the spread if I was going to bet. If I was forced and had to bet, I'd bet the spread for the Browns. I certainly wouldn't bet the money line because some act of God will happen and the Chiefs will win. But yeah, it's an interesting game.
One thing I like on that too is putting Myles Garrett against their suspect tackles.
Oh yeah, he should kill him.
Yeah, but then you have that classic Mahomes scramble where he goes out of bounds but doesn't, and makes a 30-yard scramble to put them in a position to just win the game. So
yeah, tell me about it.
All right. Well, that concludes all of our picks. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Air of depression on that.
Yeah, no, that one is, yeah. Well, we can only hope that Myles Garrett spikes Mahomes and puts him on his big fat head, and we don't have to see him the rest of the year. That would be wonderful.
I agree. So before we conclude everything, is there any other game that interests you or any matchup that you like?
I mean, as a football fan, obviously Detroit playing against the Bills is super fun. I wouldn't bet this in any direction just because both teams are fully capable. But I mean, this could be a preview of the Super Bowl. You and I hope it is, but the rest of the nation hopes it is. It'd be funny to watch the Bills lose another Super Bowl, so that would be entertaining. That's for sure. But I mean, we got between that and your game between Steelers Eagles. Unfortunately, you're both at 1 o'clock. That's the part that sucks. But we got two really good games this week, so that's always an exciting thing. So that part's good just as a football fan.
Yeah, I like it when you have one of those games during the week where you don't feel comfortable betting on it, but it's just going to be such a great matchup that you just get to sit and watch it for the pure game, not hoping it goes one way or the other, but just seeing how ultimately it turns out.
Yeah, two good teams playing each other. I don't have a bone in the fight, a dog in the fight of either one of them. Just want to see a good game. It'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time,
Cool.
Jason, and next
Yeah,
week
thanks for
we'll
letting me do
see
this.
where we land and end
Yeah,
up
we
on
got to
these
roll them
bets.
back and see how bad we are. Our accountability is going to be the biggest thing because how many sports shows do you see where there's no accountability and they just pop off like the talking heads that they are, and then on the next week it's like as if nothing happened. So we definitely need to run it back and see how well we did for sure. That'll be fun.
So I have all of our bets logged. So we're gonna do a
Okay.
record and some of the honorable mention ones, like we mentioned, the Henry first touchdown, the Rico Dowdle. We'll keep an eye on that to see, hey, if we did put something on that, or if that was one of our bets, if that would have hit too. So we'll definitely have everything tracked, so there's no, in a couple of weeks, it'll be easy to
Yeah,
see
there'll be no shenanigans. We'll
if we
know who
actually
won.
know what
Yeah.
we're talking about or not.
Yeah, probably not, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, right?